Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to these talks on karma. And today we will be focusing our attention on the karma of meditation. But there are many meditations, and so we are looking particularly, and in a very traditional way, that will become an important point, you'll see, in a traditional way, at the karma due to concentration meditation. Concentration meditation may be familiar to you under its Tibetan name of Shine, or the Sanskrit shamatha, or one of the many English translations like calm abiding, peaceful abiding, mental stability, whatever it is. This is what we are considering. In the previous talks with the karma of mind, we were thinking about the moving mind. And some of you, I'm sure, are practicing Mahamudra, are training in Mahamudra, and you'll be familiar with this notion of the moving mind and the still mind. When our minds are in ordinary life, before we train in meditation, they are continually busy all the time. We are thinking, remembering, imagining, planning, looking to the future. We are analyzing the data coming in through our five senses. Our mind is usually very busy and in quite a scattered way, going from this to that. So the mind is usually moving all the time for most people. But there are those who meditate, who learn to concentrate and to settle their mind. And then the mind learns, with enough training, to be very, very still, serene, peaceful. Anyone can do that. In this teaching on karma, although, of course, being Buddhists, we're interested in the Buddhist outcomes, or the Buddhist use of concentration meditation. Anybody can still the mind using a focus. And indeed, through the history of humankind, in various faiths, in various practices, this has been done. Certainly in India, it's nothing special to Buddhism, and it's nothing even, when we consider it, special to religion. So let's have one first important point already. Just stilling your mind, becoming peaceful, is not in itself something good, something virtuous. It can be the basis for much good. It can be used for good. We can use it, for instance, to overcome anger and desire and so on. It can be used for good, but in itself, it is simply a still mind. My friend Mathieu Ricard says, writes in one of his books about mindfulness, one could be a very mindful sniper. So even though one is very calm, very focused and in the moment, one is using that tool to kill somebody. And indeed, a very evil person could be an incredibly efficient, evil person because they know how to hold their mind focused. They have, because of that power of focus, mastery of their own mind. They have a very strong mind. And it could be a strong mind for evil as well as for good. Now, we're not considering that today, because that is more to do with the moving mind. Once there's the mastery of the mind through meditation, then it's moved and used in evil or good, or for good. We're not thinking about that. We're looking at simple stillness, not supported by any other context, such as a Buddhist context, where all of our journey is a path of peace, a path towards liberation from suffering, from samsara, and so on. There's a whole context, a whole support. What happens off the cushion is guiding one's life in a whole direction, and then meditation, concentration meditation, is a tool that's used for that path. We're not looking at that. We're looking at simply making your mind peaceful. And if enough mastery of peacefulness, mastery of shamatha is gained, what are the long-term effects on the meditator? And what the teachings show us, to sum it up simply, is that if you reach a very good degree of mastery, and we'll encounter, well, in fact, 17 different levels of mastery when we study concentration meditation. But if one reaches a level of mastery, and then that's stabilized in the human life, so it becomes really your main thing. That's your big thing in life. You've reached this degree of peacefulness, and the rest of your life, off the cushion, is mainly to keep you alive, keep you nourished, and so on. But what you've attained as a meditator is peacefulness and all the qualities that come with it. Then if a level of mastery is attained, what will happen is that when the body dies, the mind does not go into the bardo state, in between lives. The mind goes into that very state of meditation that you've achieved, almost seamlessly. And then, because you no longer have a body, you don't need to move. You don't need to get up to go to the toilet. You don't need to eat. You don't need rest. It is just the mind in meditation. That can last for an amazingly long period of time, and depending on the level of mastery that you've reached, that somebody's reached, then there will be not just peacefulness, but there can be qualities of blissfulness and so on, depending on how far you got. No bardo after you die, and then straight for what for humans may be hundreds, who knows, even thousands of years, for a long time, into a state of wonderful peace and blissfulness. So that sounds not too bad. And in fact, it's called reborn, although the mind just goes into those states. There's no mother, father, no birth as such. The mind just goes there. But anyway, being reborn into those meditation states is called rebirth in the Deva realms, the God realms, because it is so delightful. It's about as nice, if we use that word, as samsara can be. But as in all of these karmas, we're still in samsara. There are causes. You meditate a lot while you're alive as a human. And these causes, depending on their weight, their strength, produce their results. So you're reborn in a Deva realm of meditation. And that will last as long as it lasts, depending on the power of the causes. But when it comes to an end, it's over. It's impermanent. And then you pick up whatever other karma you made before. And that may be very different. There are many stories of those who are reborn in the Deva realms, meditation Deva realms, but who afterwards either have, or according to the Buddha's predictions, will fall from there into the lower realms. Once it's over, it's over. It's like a holiday. It's like going off for a couple of weeks to a beautiful place. But when it's finished, and then you come back and pick up whatever's left of your life. So it's part of samsara. When we come to the Bodhisattva teachings, we'll see because of that, we really and truly avoid whatever will pull us in that direction of just sweet rebirth. Because it's sweet, but not useful in our journey of compassion, learning to help each other. It's parking the mind in peacefulness. So that's what we're looking at. Stilling the mind. And it's something which has a tremendous pull to it once we start and discover peace. It's so wonderful that one wants more. And then as that peace becomes stable, one realizes that even though it's so good, it can be even better. It's like tidying a room. When it's very untidy first, we put some order. It looks so different, so nice, so good. But then, once we've made some order, then you see, but there's still this, there's still that. That could be better. This needs a good clean. This needs a polish. There's almost no end to it. So it's the same with making the mind peaceful. What seems so peaceful at first, once you're used to it, becomes actually rough when one sees some things need to go. So how do we study this process? Well, we study it through the way it is used within Buddhism. So not just the raw process for anybody. Mainly we study it through the way it was used in the early times of Buddhism and is still used in the Theravada tradition with its, I call it its own logic, where one state of peace leads to the next, and it has a tremendous pull because it's so beautiful, it's so wonderful that one's mind can go that way. It leaves us with a little bit of a problem because the Tibetans use this very, very clear explanation, step 1, step 2, and so on, that comes from those early teachings of the Buddha. But actually, in the meditations they themselves used, the Tibetan schools, as far as I know, never really did these meditations. So they use the sketch, the roadmap of meditation, concentration meditation, that those early teachings give because it's so clear, useful for explaining, but they're not talking from their own experience. In the Tibetan systems, we have the Mahayana meditations, we have the Mahamudra, the Dzogchen, the Tantric meditations, so many wonderful meditations. And of course, they all must learn to bring the mind to peace. Shamatha, peacefulness. It's very, very important. But the thing is, in those early Buddhist meditations and in the Theravada meditations, the method and the outcome of the method doesn't really fit with the Mahayana purpose or the Vajrayana purpose. That's why. And also they take a lot of time. And a human life is very short. Our time is incredibly precious. And the Tibetan approach is to invest one's time elsewhere in more efficient means. What we are looking at, and I think probably what will need another talk from me to really do justice to, are what are called the 4 dhyanas. So this is a Sanskrit word, dhyana. In Pali it's the 4 jhanas. And these are 4 levels of absorption, meditation absorption. The process is this. At first, our mind, as I mentioned, is very, very wild, goes here and there, and I'm sure many of you are meditating, most of you are meditating. You know, once you sit down and start to try and meditate, all the time you're bringing the mind back because it is so busy and scattered. So the technique is to pick a focus, and although the Theravada system, the early Buddhist system, has very well-defined focuses, foci, we use any focus simply as a point where you can anchor your awareness. So you say, stay there. It can be a stone, distant object, candle flame. It can be something imagined as well. It doesn't really matter. As well as something real, it doesn't matter. We say to the mind, stay there. It's like teaching a puppy dog to sit. You know, it does not want to sit. It's not in its nature to sit. So you have to hold its bottom to the ground and say, sit, sit. So it associates the word with being in that position. And first, when you take your hand away, immediately it wants to run away. So you push it back down, sit, sit. And with time, you end up with a dog who's very, very happy to be a good dog, good boy, good girl, who can just sit without any hand, without any telling off. Happy to sit. So our mind at first is very distracted by thoughts, by memories, by plans, by what's going on around us. And we keep bringing it back to the breath, or to the candle, or to the stone. And slowly, 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 2 things happen. One is that we are less distracted. And this is the wonderful thing. The power of a lifetime of habit to take our mind to these thoughts, these feelings, this thing, that thing, is weakened so that we can become the boss of our own mind. That's one thing that happens. And the other thing is that once the mind is settled on its focus, then we find a serenity, a calm, a peacefulness, so beautiful. Makes the body feel balanced, harmonious, blissful, makes the mind feel well, and in itself is so still. So it opens the door to peace, and that peace can be engineered in many, many ways as part of our Buddhist path. So we learn to not be distracted, and we learn to open up the experiences of peace. In the early Buddhist teachings, in the Theravada teachings, we find 4 main levels of absorption defined, 4 dhyanas. They each arise because the mind is literally absorbed within. The mind is internalized into a mental cipher, a mental reproduction of what one has been looking at as one's meditation focus. So first you look at something, you look at it again and again and again, and in those methods they actually describe it. If they're looking at earth, they say earth, 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 earth. Keep the awareness focused. They look again, they look again. And gradually they've looked so much and defined so much, it's in your mind all the time, within. and one actually becomes absorbed in the mind, in the mind's reproduction, totally, so that the sense doorways, seeing, hearing and so on, are closed. You don't hear, you don't see anymore, you are absorbed. So there's a first level of absorption, which has 4 characteristics. And then there's a second level in which 2 of those characteristics are realized to be rough, and it will be smoother and deeper, more subtle without them. There's a third level of absorption where yet another of the 4 characteristics goes, so there's 1 left. And in the 4th level, none left. But all the time, the mind is internalized in the form. Then one goes on from there to 4 meditations without form, the 4 formless contemplations, they're called. And then, when they are mastered, one learns to jump backwards and forwards between these 8 levels. So there's a lot of flexibility of mind. The mind can absorb itself instantly, more or less, in any one of those levels. In a Buddhist path, that journey of concentrating the mind is married with the teachings of the 4 great truths, the 4 truths of realized beings. And it's that marriage of wisdom and meditation that brings liberation from suffering. In the teachings on the karma of immobility, we are not looking at that. That's the Buddhist use of meditation. We're looking at simply the journey of stilling the mind till it gets to the point of total absorption. 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level. And or the formless meditations. And if they become strong enough, where will they take us at death? So, as I mentioned earlier, when we look into those 4 dhyanas and 4 formless meditations, in detail, we end up with 17 possible rebirths according to the state that we've achieved. They're called rebirths in the Deva realms, the God realms. When we come to the teachings on suffering, we'll discover there are 3 types of God realms. The first are what many people imagine the God realms to be. Beautiful paradises where there are gods, goddesses, palaces. In general, it's a sensorial realm. What you see is beautiful, what you hear is beautiful. The sensations are beautiful, harmonious. The 5 senses are as richly endowed as they can be within samsara. So that's the sensorial God realms, often called the desire God realms. And then if one's a meditator, and through the absorption, the dhyana, the mind has reached a degree of mastery, one of the 17 levels related to being absorbed in a form, then there are the form God realms. Now, although they're called God realms, there aren't gods and goddesses. These are states of meditation. You die, your mind goes into that state of meditation, that's it. But because it is as good as samsara gets, pretty much, it's called a Deva realm, a God realm. And then if amongst the 17 one has reached mastery of the formless realms, then one becomes what's called a formless God. But it's the same thing. One isn't a God with some kind of Deva body. One's body is the mental state of meditation. I think that's really enough for today to take us into this area of thinking. Please do think about it. As always, we need to get our head around the ideas, think about them. What does this really mean? What is a moving mind? How is it when it's still? How still can it be? And if we spend a lot of our lives meditating, this is important. Where will it be taking us? Meditation's a new field for us. We live in times of chaos, and even Buddhism, which has exploded onto the world stage, is in a sort of state of chaos and change. So there's a lot of meditation around these days. It can offer us wonders, but we need to be very careful to what we're doing to ourselves, with our mind. Are we using our time wisely and efficiently? So it's too early to answer those questions. First things first, we have to get into this mindset of thinking about our mind makes karma, not only when it's moving nicely, harmfully, but also when we still it in meditation. Meditation is not necessarily good. It is a tool that can be used in many ways. And if we just simply still the mind, where is that taking the mind? This is the question. So, thank you very, very much for listening, following these teachings. Meditate well, go well, and look forward to continuing in the next talk to say a little bit more about these 4 dhyanas. It's a rather specialized topic, but it's good that somewhere we get an idea of what it is. Thank you. Bye-bye.